half in the bag.
Where'd you even find this sweater? It's covered in cat hair.
That was your grandmother's. She was buried in it. Don't ask me how I got it, but it involved a shovel, digging up about 6 feet worth of dirt, violently opening a coffin, and then removing said sweater from an old skeleton. But just don't ask for the details, okay?
Mike, I don't know why you're being so vague, but don't you think this is kind of a pointless and terrible idea? I'm starting to think that you're doing this just for your own sick pleasure.
No, of course not, Jay. That's crazy. Look, once you finally become Mrs. Harry Plinkett, then you and I can go down to that attorney's office and we can make you, I mean us, Mr. Plinkett's power of attorney. Then we could steal all of his money and it'll be legal.
Did we have to invite all of my friends and family to the wedding? Does it have to be held at the Ritz-Carlton? Did you have to hire Adele to sing our first dance?
Look, idiot, if we just went down to the courthouse, this whole thing would look like the scam that it is. The fact that we're spending so much time and money and effort on it just makes it look that more legit. Don't you know how scams work?
It's not even worth trying to stop you, is it?
No. Look, we're gonna take the engagement photos today, so get ready, okay? Make sure your perfect hair and beard are perfectly coiffed. Wait, they usually are.
Oh, I got into a bar fight.
Oh my God, what happened to you, my love? I mean, what happened to you, Mr. Plinkett?
Oh, I wore my Make America Great Again hat to a Mexican restaurant. Oh, they shoved it up my rectum. They were some bad hombres.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you have a crazy story to tell us, Mr. Plinkett, so why don't you have a seat next to Jay here? Tell us all about what happened.
There's no chair.
Oh, that's okay. You can just sit on Jay's knee.
Okay.
And just, we want to hear all about the bar fight.
Oh God, what is this?
Just trust me. Oh. Now, Jay, if you could hold up this sign like that, and Mr. Plinkett, if you hold up that, that's great. Okay. All right, perfect. Oh, a little bit towards the camera here. Perfect. Okay, great.
Why are you taking my picture?
You know, to document your injuries in case you decide to like press charges against the Mexican restaurant or, you know, for a police report, that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
So trust me, this just a little bit this way. And Jay, if you could smile a little, that would be helpful.
No.
Okay.
Why does he need to smile when my...
And I got what I need. Okay, great. Thanks.
I'm gonna go to sleep right now. If I don't wake up, bury me next to my dog in the backyard. Old Trumpy.
All this wedding planning is really stressing me out. We should talk about 2 movies that are completely stress-free and not depressing at all. Get Out and Logan.
Oh, yeah. I hear they're very lighthearted and fun to watch. And I've seen both these films, so it's perfect that you and I can both talk about them now on our internet review show.
Or what?
I mean, in these chairs in Mr. Plinkett's house, which is a real house.
So you guys coming up from the city?
Yeah, we're just heading up for the weekend.
Can I see your license, please?
He wasn't driving.
I didn't ask who was driving. I asked to see his ID.
From the mind of Jordan Peele, one half of the comedy duo Key and Peele, comes a new horror film called Get Out. No, it's not about ghosts, but it's just as scary and real. Because Mike thinks ghosts are real.
Because they are.
No, this film is about a black guy named Chris who is dating a white girl named Rose. They are heading to meet her parents in an affluent suburb somewhere. Chris soon discovers something strange is going on. You've seen the trailer, why am I talking? Mike, what did you think of Get Out?
Get out!
Isn't it a shame that the movie's not terrible? Because then every single review would say, Get Out, ... of the theater. But Jordan Peele had to go ahead and make a good movie.
Well, Get Out was a thoroughly enjoyable film. It was a little, I found it uneven, and kind of like a big episode of Star Trek. where people go to a place, they discover something weird's going on, and then they investigate it, and it's like, oh, that's what was going on this whole time.
I think a more apt comparison would be like the Twilight Zone or maybe Tales from the Crypt, more so than Star Trek.
What about Hot Fuzz?
Oh, okay. I can see a little bit of Hot Fuzz without us getting into spoilers. Yeah.
Obviously, everyone, if you've seen the trailer, I think you just really need to watch the trailer. It's such an excellent trailer.
Watching the trailer, that's one of my complaints, because I really, really like the movie, but the trailer spoils way too much of it. Because it's a movie, almost, not everything, but
There's one
close
twist.
to everything.
One twist that doesn't spoil.
Yeah, because it really is one of those things where it's like, guy shows up, something slightly off, and you want to discover along with him, like, what weird things are going on. And the trailer gives most of it away in quick succession.
I found like as a mystery kind of horror invasion of the body snatchers kind of plot type thing, I found the actual like twist or plot line conclusion to be rather uninteresting. If it was all like a big horrible misunderstanding, it would have been different. You know what I mean? It was like straight up like boom, 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 boom. You know, and then of course that's the plot line, and I think that's kind of why it reminds me of Star Trek, is that there's the literal actual storyline, and then there's like the social commentary on top of it.
Right.
The black guy has a white girlfriend, and he's terrified. He says white people make him nervous. He has to go to the dad's a neurosurgeon, the mom's a therapist. They live in like probably Connecticut or Vermont, some rich white state, and you know he feels like uncomfortable because he doesn't know if the parents are going to accept him and all that, and then it turns out
She hasn't told him before they show up that he's black.
yes,
She hasn't told the parents.
you know he's nervous about that. There's that on top of it, but then there's something else going on, and that's kind of your Star Trek story. And then there's a little twist at the end. And, they're doing this because I've been rewatching a lot of TOS lately, and that's every episode of TOS.
Do you ever stop watching Star Trek?
No, but I'm rewatching TOS because it's been a little while, and
Couple days.
and almost every episode is a nightmarish horror movie scenario where the Starship Enterprise crew go down somewhere and there's something funky going on, and they got to find out what. But I think your point about the trailer giving away way too much is because the trailer gives almost every beat of the whole movie. It's an excellent trailer, edited very well, and you're like, this is great. This is a great movie, and it's also one of those movies that, if it wasn't so well executed, that it would border on, this is a movie that works as a fake trailer format, like a horror movie about a black guy going to meet a white girl's parents and him walking into basically like a nightmare world.
General anxieties and fears of doing that anyway, and then on top of that, there's something sinister going on.
And like evil rich white people are monsters, the movie is a great little like nugget.
Sure.
But then there's like the whole fact that the whole movie is well acted, well executed.
It's an incredibly well made movie.
Yeah.
I really like the movie a lot. I think I had mentioned I really liked.
What?
I really like water bottles.
Sorry. Oh wait.
Okay. Well, I really liked the movie. Do you hear that?
What? No, go ahead. Keep going.
Okay. Well, I was saying that I really liked the movie. I thought that it was. Is that your water bottle that's making that noise?
Okay, couldn't be.
Well, I had mentioned earlier Tales from the Crypt, and I think this premise would work really great as like a 30-minute Tales from the Crypt episode. I like the movie a lot, but I do feel like its premise is stretched a little thin. I know they're trying to build the tension and build the atmosphere, and it does a really good job of doing that, but beyond what you see in the trailer, there's not much more to it, except for the twist at the end.
There is no twist at the end.
Not necessarily a twist. There's more of a revelation of what's happening. It's kind of like when people talk about Split, which is a movie we did not do on Half in the Bag. I think both of us really liked Split. But that's one, not including the end scene, the Marvel-esque end scene, but Split's another one where it's not that it has a twist, it's that it has an escalation of the events that have already been established in the movie.
You wanted to talk about Split, and I did not. So I guess you could say we were very indecisive about whether or not we would talk about it.
Sure. But what I really, and it's hard to talk about this too much without getting into spoilers, so be a little vague. Well, I'm going to try and say it before we get into spoilers, but what I really liked about this movie is what it didn't do, because I was picturing the dumb version of this movie.
Okay.
The late career George Romero version, where the social commentary is completely on the nose and broad and stupid. Like in another version of this movie where it like takes place in the South, and all the rich white folk have Southern accents, and they're saying like overtly racist things, and it's just stupid. And the message, the social commentary of the movie is that racism is bad. And that's not what this is at all. It is about racism, but it's done in a much smarter way, where it's not overt racism. It's not that. It's more almost going in the other direction, where it's like these. Okay, now I guess we are getting into spoilers. It's these like rich white folk that think they're being like progressive and cool by putting their brains into the bodies of black people.
I mean, it's almost like it flips itself, and you're looking at it through the Chris character.
Well, but they're specifically picking black people,
Yeah, well,
because of the way they perceive it. And even early on when they're having the party and people are saying these things to the Chris character, and it's like, it's not like they're not being mean or condescending to him, but they're just so detached from his worldview that it's like off-putting.
He has a different worldview, and he has a different way of perceiving everything that's going on. He sees two black people, the maid, housekeeper, and then the groundskeeper, and he's like, oh, they're the servants, and they're not picking black people because they want to enslave them or use them. They're picking them just because they're better. I mean, it's just weird. It's that goes to the third part of the discussion on this movie, which I will sweep under the rug and ignore. It's like logic and realism. The fact that I can sit there and go, well, how come they didn't catch on to this? How come the police didn't discover that this person was missing when they're clearly here? And how does all this work? Sure. And it doesn't really matter. Because that's the point of the movie.
It's like a folk tale almost.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, I wanted to mention the music. Like the opening scene of the movie, black dude walking through like a very sort of affluent suburb neighborhood. Gets abducted, and this is all played out in one shot that's just kind of the camera swirling around him. It's great. And then the opening credits start, and I heard strings, high-pitched strings, which is like classic horror movie stuff that you never hear anymore. And I was like, and that makes me think of like a folk tale, like that type of sound.
Yeah.
And so I really loved the score. Yeah, like that's never used anymore. It was like, this is great. And then the contrast of like the music that he's listening to, there's like an ironic use of kind of like happy music as he's being abducted, and and then the opening font of the titles reminded me of John Landis. Only did 2 horror films, but it reminded me very much of John Landis. I don't know if that was intentional, but lots of little influences that I felt throughout the whole thing. Just really, really well executed, especially considering it's Jordan Peele's first film as a director.
Yeah. It would have been so much more enjoyable had I not seen the trailer.
That's
what's going on.
That's the problem.
So look, I go do my research. Apparently, a whole bunch of brothers been missing in this suburb. But it's cool. Bro, how you not scared of this, man?
The ultimate revelation, which is that they're, actually removing the brains from these people and putting them in other people's bodies, is so weird that it was unexpected for me. Because I thought it was going to be more of just a hypnotist brainwashing thing. That I enjoyed it just for that. Like we mentioned Split earlier. That's another one that gets weird, and I like that horror movies are getting weird again, as opposed to just playing it safe and straight.
Yeah, to me it didn't feel as weird as maybe it did to you. It felt like sort of like a science-y experiment, mad scientist thing. And I'm like, okay, got it. What was sort of slightly disappointing, it was like, it had a very like violent and visceral ending where it wasn't really very well resolved or written. It's just like Chris figures a way to escape, and he basically just fucking murders everyone that's in his path.
Sure.
And there is no real we're doing this because of this. There's no like, it didn't feel like, and in a way that was refreshing to me. I was like,
Sure.
great, you know, you stabbed that guy with the deer antlers.
Well, it's more what happens after that I liked, where there are things that were set up earlier, like we established that the flash from his camera kind of brings the person back, so he uses that again. There's a red herring with a cop early on that you think might be in on it, and then you think that cop shows up at the end, and it turns out to be his friend that has arrived to save him. And so I think it was clever. It was well written.
Well, sure, everything was well set up, and it just sort of like, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Hateful Eight, where you have this like wonderful hour and a half of great characters, and then just everyone kills each other at the end, and there's no. And another thing too is like, I'm like, it wasn't a true social commentary without that cop car showing up, Chris getting arrested, and then ending it with a news report: a black man murders entire white girl's family.
Well, that's what I thought they were going to do, or do like a Night of the Living Dead, where the cop was going to show up and shoot him or something.
Good shot. Okay, he's dead. Let's go get him. That's another one for the fire.
I mean, it would have been totally like frustrating and very satirical and all that if
Well, it would have been too obvious, I think. And
it would have been too obvious.
That's why I appreciated, like I said earlier, all the things this movie didn't do that it could have done.
That's the other thing worth discussing is the TSA agent stuff and how kind of like lighthearted and goofy that was in comparison. Did you think that was a good mix?
In a lesser movie, I think that character would have been annoying and off-putting, but for whatever reason, I think maybe just because I was so like on board with the rest of the movie, I actually thought he worked, and I laughed quite a bit.
Oh yeah, no, I did too.
When he's talking about Jeffrey Dahmer.
Look, Jeffrey Dahmer was eating the shit out of niggas' heads, okay? But that was after he fucked the heads.
I was laughing, and that's not the type of character I usually like in a horror movie. That's usually the weakest part, but.
Right. No, the actor was funny. The lines were funny.
Yeah.
It did feel like I'm going into a different movie now, and then I'm coming back.
A little bit.
It's like
mainly because he was so separated from the rest of the story.
Yeah, and the fact that the stuff in the main storyline was so well done.
Yeah. Like
dramatically, visually, on every level. And then you have the other stuff, which is like you got that scene where he's going to the police and explaining it to them, and it's just sort of like straight up comedy.
Well, that's another part where it reminded me of John Landis, like American Werewolf in London, where it's there's these serious, gritty, dark horror things, and then like a completely goofy scene where a guy's dropping bedpans everywhere.
Did you feel at all like over expositioned a little when he was forced to watch like the training video?
It was a little like, we need to get this exposition out of the way, and it'll just appear on a TV. That was the one element of it where I was like, everything else I thought worked really well, and that was the one that felt like more of a cliche horror movie.
Yeah, the drama stuff worked very well. The comedy stuff worked well. I'm not sure how well they work together, but it's refreshing. It wasn't like the dumb comedy character that's shoved in the movie for that sake. I mean, it clearly was, but it felt like wasn't that bad.
It felt like it was just that character. Like it felt like that's how he would naturally act, as opposed to like poorly written comic relief sidekick that feels completely out of place.
Yeah, but the big shame is that the trailer pretty much tells you the whole movie, which is a little unfortunate, but it is worth watching the whole thing for all the other good stuff.
And when things, I don't know how it was when you saw it at your screening, but when things do start to ramp up at the end, like the audience I saw it with was super into it, in a good way, where people are like yelling at the screen, but it's not obnoxious, because it's like more of it's the theater going experience that people talk about that never happens anymore. So, Mike, would you recommend Get Out?
Get Out! Absolutely. Although if you're strapped for cash or time, or just realize that there are way too many fucking movies and TV shows to see, you could probably really enjoy watching the trailer. It's a horror film for a black guy.
That's kind of a big deal. There aren't a lot of those, really.
No, not from the perspective of a young black man. Usually they're the ones that get killed off in the movie. They're the funny friend or the black friend, the token black friend, who's with 8 white people at a cabin, and then guy comes around and the black guy gets killed first. So it's wonderful to have a movie like that. A black guy is not scared of a guy in a hockey mask with a knife. He's really scared of meeting his white girlfriend's rich parents. So it's a different kind of movie. Jay, I'm assuming you'd recommend it?
I would also recommend it as more of the horror fan between the two of us. I thought it was one of the better horror movies that's come out lately.
Get out of your house and go to the theater.
Thanks, Gene Shalit.
Get out.
A bomb is a terrible thing to waste.
We got ourselves an X-Men fan.
All good things must come to an end, and so it goes with Hugh Jackman's final performance as Wolverine in this very uncomic book movie. So much misery, death, shooting, fighting, and senile psychic accidents for this critic to handle. I give Wolverine an F. Jay, what you think of Wolverine? Hey Jay, what did you think of Logan?
What?
What did you think of the Wolverine?
X-Men Origins Wolverine Part 2? Mm-hmm. This movie is in the same franchise as X-Men Origins Wolverine.
It is.
It's in the same franchise as X-Men Apocalypse. I loved this movie. I really, really, really liked it a lot. I was very happy that it was rated R. It was nice as a send-off to the Wolverine character. It's kind of crazy, like, when you look at this franchise as a whole, just like how long it's been going on, and 2, how all over the place it is in terms of quality. And this will not be the last X-Men movie. I'm sure they'll continue on in other forms, but as the first X-Men movie started with Wolverine, this movie ends with Wolverine. It is about as perfect a send-off, I think, for Hugh Jackman as this character that you could get.
Yeah.
It was exciting when it needed to be. It was dramatic and emotional in ways that you don't see a lot in comic book movies. It was great. It was great.
You said it all. Everything that I could possibly say. This movie was darn near flawless, and I enjoyed it. It was very bittersweet. We'll just right off again to spoilers. I mean, this is the last film Hugh Jackman will be playing Wolverine in. Hint, hint. I'm not going to give spoilers, but...
If you go into this movie not expecting the people...
Yes, if you go into this movie not expecting that 98-year-old Patrick Stewart will live on to fight another day, then you're stupid.
Yes.
Okay? So I'm sorry, but it was very, I don't know, it made me sad. I was very emotional at the end.
Oh God, the final shot of the movie is like the most perfect thing.
Yeah.
It was so good.
It was a great send-off, and it was like you said, the perfect closing, if you're a fan of Wolverine, and everyone always says we don't want to see Wolverine with...
Well, people complain because of the X-Men movies, they're supposed to be about the team, and it was always Wolverine and the X-Men. But that's because Hugh Jackman has always been great in this role, and he's always been the best part of any of the movies.
The good stuff boils to the top.
Yeah.
And he always stood out as playing it really well. Plus, he's a favorite character, and I think also too, the fact that this was a hard R.
Yes, this was an R-rated movie.
Yes, we haven't seen a good R-rated movie in a while. A movie that's not afraid to use the F word every 5 seconds.
His first line in the movie, the first line of dialogue in the movie was him just sort of fuck.
Yeah.
That's great.
And he's yelling fuck at the little girl right in her face. And I'm sure fans will be delighted to see Wolverine violently murdering people.
Yes.
In horrific, grotesque, violent, awful ways. He doesn't really want to, You know, like that. There's a great opening scene where he's getting his car ripped off.
Yeah.
Like, trying to steal his hubcaps, and he's like, "Nah, I don't want to fight you guys." And then he does everything he can.
He's old and sick and tired of all this shit, but he has to.
Yeah. The only thing I missed was him chomping on a cigar.
Yeah, there's none of that.
I guess it was a little too hard for this hard R. We don't want to promote smoking. But I like the theme. It was very subtle. It was like a theme of like family, and it wasn't like ham-fisted and annoying.
No, not at all.
Picard, shit. Professor X, Logan, and the little girl, they have to go somewhere. I don't want to get too into the plot details because it doesn't matter. They have to go somewhere.
They have to go on a road trip and they bond.
They have to go on a road trip, but Professor X is kind of like a father figure to Logan, and then we discover that the little girl is his daughter biologically.
Yeah.
And then Picard. Professor X is like, this is what life's about. It's about like being in a home with your family, that sort of thing.
This is what it feels like, I think is what he says.
This is what life, feels like.
Yeah.
It's
very like indie movie drama stuff.
Yeah. He even pretends that Professor X is his father, as a cover. But and then the Wolverine ends on that note of like, I'm not just gonna die like blowing myself up to stop the robot from the. It's more just like, oh, okay, I got what life is all about, and it's very sweet.
Yeah.
Which was surprising, but it still has tons and tons of horrific violence if you want that in your superhero movie too. Yeah.
Not a lot of action, but well executed action that comes. I think works better because it's sparse.
Oh, sure.
Like the car chase early on when their compound where they've been at has been invaded, and he's driving towards the fence and he's like, "Hang on!" and you're waiting for him to plow through the fence, and they just get fucking stuck in the fence and have to go in reverse.
Yeah, that was one of the better action sequences or better moments of the movie. I really liked that part where he goes and gets. He goes and
just call him Picard. It's
he
fine.
Goes and gets Picard and puts him in the car, and and then they're like the little girls fighting everybody, and they're driving around, and it felt like a '90s action scene.
Yeah.
It didn't feel so like, I don't know. After watching the trailer for like Fast and Furious 9 and all the stuff they could do, it felt real like grounded.
Yeah.
It felt real like a simple action movie, and there was one scene after the other. And then it had everything that you could need.
You look at like X-Men Apocalypse, where there is like such a sharp contrast between the more dramatic elements of that movie and just complete schlock action stuff.
Yeah.
And this movie, it has action and it has Professor X trying to freeze time and all these superhero-ish things, but the tone is just like balanced completely perfectly.
It's like a Western movie.
They're watching a Western, they're watching Shane on TV at one point, and even in the score, occasionally you hear a little bit of Western twang come in.
And the fact that they're in the Southwest, they're in Texas and then Oklahoma, and there's no major cities that they go into.
So much of it looks like a post-apocalyptic movie, and it's not really, but it has, with the locations and the cinematography, everything's sort of like brown and gray.
Yeah. They end up on a farm, and there's no like. Usually, like in a movie like this, they're like, we'll have to have this scene to contrast everything. Like they have to go to the city, and it has to be this scene in a.
No, everything's on the outskirts.
In the real world, people die.
Logan.
I don't want to talk about it.
Logan. Just stop.
How do I say this politely? It felt a little X-Men 3, The Last Stand, because in that movie it was less tastefully done, more schlocky and cartoony, but they also had the secret laboratory with little kid mutants that were being like, they had the bald kid that everybody wanted. The same kind of premise where they had a scientist guy and they had a bunch of kid mutants in a laboratory, or maybe it was just the one, I don't know. But where they were kind of like extracting their powers and they wanted to control the mutant population. And that's kind of what this guy did. He wanted to basically take that mutant gene power and kind of use it for his own advantage to make super soldiers, to enhance humans.
See, this sounds schlocky, but in the movie, it's fine.
It's very buried. It's just the premise.
Yeah.
And then, when we watched X-Men Apocalypse, I liked X-Men Apocalypse, because it was so terrible.
Yeah. Well, it's the same with X-Men Origins Wolverine. You're
Yes.
the world's biggest champion of that movie.
Yeah, I like my extreme ends. I like schlock, and then I think X-Men Apocalypse, we had talked about wanting to see an entire film based entirely on Magneto's life in the Romanian village with his daughter and wife.
Something more closer in tone to like what this was.
Yeah, and so here we get it.
Yeah.
It's like, great. The whole like underground like lab in Mexico and the sleazy scientists kind of doing this thing. And then the second Wolverine was kind of schlock. D23, D24.
24, yeah.
I'm like, I made another Wolverine, a little schlock. But
it works as a metaphor, though, as an internal conflict within
sure,
Logan.
it's a Superman 3 moment in the junkyard, right?
Oh, sure.
I know we're not talking about the Brendan Routh Superman, the one that came out when you were born. We're talking about the old one. Anyways, yeah, so I guess that can be symbolic. So a couple of stocking helmets, but it's like, ooh, 2% on the bottom.
The more close to schlocky, villain storyline aside, the actual central story of like, we have this kid in our possession and now we have to get them from here to here, like, usually the actual plot of all these comic book movies is like the worst part of it. It's like, the character stuff is good and the action stuff is good, but like it all worked well in this movie.
No. No. No.
Well, we have Deadpool to thank for this. Deadpool being successful and rated R. And now we finally get... It's funny because that movie and then this movie, they're very, very different, obviously tonally, but they're great examples of what you can do with a comic book movie when you don't just, go right down the middle with it. All the Marvel movies are fine. They're all consistently good, but they're all kind of the same. Mm-hmm. To do something like this, like I mentioned, like the fact that Logan is in the same franchise as X-Men Origins Wolverine with his cartoon claws. I was thinking about that early on with this, when the one claw's not coming out all the way, and he's like pulling it out, and I was like, that looks great. It doesn't look like a Roger Rabbit cartoon.
Oh, that was some bad stuff. Yeah.
But just if you take chances, and like I've heard people compare this to like The Dark Knight, is like this is the first Oscar-worthy comic book movie since The Dark Knight. Where it's like, yeah, you can take it in that direction, you can take it in the Deadpool direction. It's really just sort of having like a vision and doing something different, as opposed to just playing it safe.
Well, Marvel is the king of playing it safe.
That's why I like the Guardians of the Galaxy, because that actually feels like somebody's idea. Like that feels like a James Gunn movie, as opposed to a lot of the other ones. Ant-Man, that would have been an Edgar Wright movie, but no, he had too much of a vision, so we got to get rid of him.
Yeah.
But this movie really feels like, well, we took a chance with Deadpool, that worked out. James Mangold, I think the director's name is. Like, make a movie. Don't make an X-Men movie. Just make the movie you want to make.
Yes. And don't fill it with other bullshit.
Yes.
Like Gambit. And the Blob.
Did you just call me Blob?
And Will.i.am.
We hunted our own kind, Logan.
My love of X-Men Origins Wolverine is somewhat in jest.
Oh, sure.
To be fair.
Yeah.
To be fair. I can see that it's not a good movie. But I can appreciate schlock every now and then. But I can also really appreciate a quality fucking movie when it comes along, especially when it's a comic book movie.
Yeah.
And when it's a comic book movie, there's so much temptation to add things that they think comic book fans will want. You know what I mean? Like we gotta have this in there, which is why I was like just a little concerned about the new Kid Mutants. One's got the power of Iceman. That must have been from Iceman's DNA. And like, no.
No, this won't be the last X-Men related movie, but it feels like a nice send off to.
It's a great send off to Hugh Jackman and the Wolverine character. Feels like he died with a really good purpose. He died learning something. It was a little melancholy, a little sad for me because you know, it's like an end of an era. It's like when Han Solo died in Force Awakens.
Sure.
You know?
This is a character that has been around, you know, and you've been watching for so long.
Yes. And I can only pray that they don't dredge him back up. Because
that would be like a slap in the face to this movie.
This was like the end of Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. The Enterprise sails off into the sunset.
Oh no, we're bringing Kirk back.
Second
start
start
to the right.
Straight
on
on
till morning. Dun, 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 dun. And then every cast member signs the credits. And then they bring them back. Come on out of the graves, everybody.
Yeah.
Let's ruin everything. Leave it alone. But yeah, it was sad. It was sad. And it was a little less sad when Professor X died. It was a really bizarrely brutal way he died.
I was a little shocked by that.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be something more like he would die making some sort of sacrifice.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a nice little speech that he gives, his little Oscar speech, his Oscar moment. But yeah, it was just sort of like abrupt and brutal, which I guess works for the story.
It worked in this particular movie, yeah.
But when you take into account, you know, his history with the series too, Patrick Stewart's history, it felt a little abrupt, but I guess that's the kind of push you need for the Logan character to take control.
You needed a really good twist like that. I kind of figured eventually at some point in the film he would die.
I assumed he would die, but I thought it would be more like in a sacrifice type
So they
way.
surprised you.
So they surprised me.
They surprised you. And if any of you have children out there of the age to enjoy comic book films,
I like the X-Men movies.
I think that was wise of them just to call this Logan.
It was great, but it never felt gratuitous.
No.
It was appropriate for Wolverine. Because we see in X2, there's the scene that everybody loves when the mansion's being, you know, raided and he's just shoving his blades into people. And it's like, finally, we get to see this. But there's no blood in the whole movie. He's stabbing people, but there's no consequences from it. Here it's like, we understand why he's so sort of jaded, you know, and wore down. It's from years of doing this shit.
She's like you, very much like you.
I am not whatever it is you think I am.
I think this movie could work for people that aren't even really into the X-Men, too.
Right.
It's just a solid movie. It's a solid story, and I think it does informs you enough of what's going on where you don't even have to have seen any of that other shit.
Yeah, I mean, you get the three characters.
Yeah.
You get the three main characters, and you get all their perspectives and who they are. And
there's a genuine like heart and emotion to the core of the movie.
Sure. Yeah, it's a definitely crossover kind of movie where, I don't want to go watch a superhero movie.
Yeah, kind of like The Dark Knight, again, mentioning that. That's one that had crossover appeal.
And you know what? Even though this is the least superhero-y movie, it is the most superhero movie. Because, you know, a bunch of guys shooting lasers at a robot that wants to do a robot thing.
You don't care after a while.
You don't care.
I hurt myself today.
But this is a movie about Logan becoming a hero again, or being heroic, because instead of being like a washed-up, grumpy guy who only cares about himself, he decides to help the kids at the end and be heroic. It's about being a superhero.
Yeah.
He saves them.
Making a sacrifice to help other people.
Exactly. So again, Spectrum.
Yes.
I like watching schlock. I like watching people shoot lasers at Apocalypse until he dies from it. But I also like the emotional, well-written character drama stuff in superhero form too. So, Jay, would you recommend Logan?
Absolutely. This might be, I mean, it's still early in the year, but I have a feeling this might be one of my favorite movies of the year. It's been a long, bumpy road for the X-Men franchise, but I don't think they could have ended it any better.
Agreed.
This is a wonderful send-off.
Yeah, I don't think they're ending the X-Men films anytime soon. But
and what it was, though,
yeah,
you know, is completely emblematic in Hugh Jackman.
Yes, it's a great send-off for Hugh Jackman. It's a great film, not necessarily an X-Men film.
Yeah,
it's a great film. It's nice to see a different superhero movie that really works. It's kind of like you said, like a Deadpool.
Yeah.
And if this one is successful, and it should be, everyone go out and see it. Don't take kids. If it is successful, I think Marvel may, and especially DC, may be going, I should rethink this shit.
Well, DC's certainly taken chances. They've just done it stupid.
Well, they've taken bad chances. That's like when Austin Powers asks for a hit on 20. Right?
I'll stay.
I suggest you hit, sir.
I also like to live dangerously.
That perfectly sums up the DC cinematic universe.
20 beats your 5. I'm sorry, sir.
That's a beautiful, beautiful scene. But yeah. It's, I mean, those terrible DC movies are like just giant, like juggernaut, no pun intended, powerhouse, destructive trains that are just out of control on the tracks. It's like, you can't help but get hit by it. And so, but eventually that'll probably run out of steam. I hope it does. And the same with the Marvel ones too. They're well done.
The Marvel movies are perfectly controlled. They know exactly what they're doing. It's scientifically tested to be completely likable.
But this one is I think there's something to be said about the movie where you feel some emotion, because I felt emotional at the end.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever felt emotional in any of those Marvel movies. I enjoyed them.
Yeah.
But not actual like connectivity or connection with the characters and actually feel something. Well, all the invitations are done, ready to be mailed out.
Mike, I really don't think that Obama and Oprah are going to show up for the wedding.
Well, that's okay. I'm sure we won't have any trouble filling all the seats. I'm inviting over 150 of your extended family members. And I'm sure all of them will be proud to know that you're marrying a gay, crippled, disgusting, toothless elderly man. And all during the whole ceremony, every last one of them will be picturing in their minds what you and Mr. Plinkett do in private and what the disgusting sex will look like on your wedding night. Well, it's time to drop these in the mailbox. Last chance to change your mind.
I guess, let's do it. An endless stream of checks is just too tempting.
All right, here goes nothing. I'm dropping them in the mailbox. You can't take it back. Here it goes. Sending them in the mail. Last chance to change your mind. 'Cause once I do this, there's no turning back. You and Plinkett are getting married. Yep, last chance. Did I say it's your last chance? Dropping them in the mailbox. You sure about this? Are you sure? Oh, they're slipping out of my fingers. Once they go in the mailbox, it's set in stone. It's up. It's done.
You know it's not instantaneous, right? They don't even pick up the mail for another 2 days. Yeah, I could just walk over there and take those out if I changed my mind at any time.
Okay, bye.